This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, the battle over abortion is far from over as the Biden administration looks for ways around the Supreme Court's move to overturn Roe v. Wade, while states are also involved in court fights over the issue. Dramatic testimony against President Donald Trump at a January 6th committee hearing Tuesday. It's being questioned now, with Secret Service agents reportedly willing to dispute the witness's story of the president's actions. What's really happening in Ukraine? Does Russia have the upper hand, or is Vladimir Putin destined to lose? We'll get the inside story from CBN contributor Chuck Holton, who recently visited Ukraine, including that shopping mall center that was hit by a rocket this week. And our Studio 5 conversation with worship leaders Bryan and Katie Torwalt as they talk about what it means to hear good news of the gospel in 2022. All those stories and more ahead right here on CBN NewsWatch. I want to begin with the ongoing battle over abortion following the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade. The Biden administration's game plan appears to be defying the court's ruling at all costs. The Health and Human Services Department has detailed how women can still access abortions. CBN's Brody Carter reports that the fight over abortion in Washington is happening in the United States all over.
It didn't take long for retaliation against the groundbreaking decision on abortion. The HSS secretary announcing the intention to ensure abortion pills are accessible in every state.
The Supreme Court's decision will result in worsened health outcomes and death for some patients. Medication abortion has been approved by the FDA for years and is safe for patients. It is the gold standard for care when someone who's pregnant experiences a miscarriage.
As government agencies scramble to understand what authority exists regarding abortion under federal law, congressional leaders are debating the question of how abortion laws impact our economy.
Did you say that ending the life of a child is good for the labor force participation rate?
Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen argued with senators that taking away access to abortion would further hurt our economy and the labor force.
Well, I believe that eliminating the right of women to make decisions about when and whether to have children would have very damaging effects on the economy and would set women back decades.
Since Roe was overturned, 13 states have chosen to ban abortion indefinitely, while other states may pursue other restrictions.
Additionally, in some of those states where they don't have a total prohibition on abortion, they're going to be able to enforce their heartbeat laws, their laws protecting women, giving them informed consent, protecting babies from discriminatory abortions based on Down syndrome.
Democrats are now making abortion the focal campaign issue in the midterms.
This fall, Roe is on the ballot. Personal freedoms are on the ballot. The right to privacy, liberty, equality, they're all on the ballot.
In California, voters will get to choose whether abortion should be legal there, which follows the direction of the Supreme Court decision, giving that decision to the states. Violence and attacks on pregnancy centers nationwide show rising volatility against organizations fighting to protect women and their unborn children.
It's a sobering reminder that there are people who still feel like they lost something, who feel threatened by the good work of pregnancy centers, hard as that can be to believe. So we've got to support those organizations because they're on the front lines for these women.
Brody Carter, CBN News.
Some are questioning dramatic testimony from a former White House staffer about President Trump's actions on January 6th. The former White House aide gave shocking testimony to the House Select Committee about the president's actions. Now there are reports the Secret Service agents are prepared to dispute parts of her story. Our Charlene Aaron is on this story.
In testimony before the January 6 House Select Committee, Cassidy Hutchinson revealed that the former president had no issues with his supporters coming to the January 6 rally with weapons, and testified that the president got physical when Secret Service agents wouldn't drive him to the Capitol. Hutchinson, a top aide to President Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, said she heard the former president tell security officers at the rally to allow armed supporters past checkpoints to make for a larger crowd.
I was in the vicinity of a conversation where I overheard the president say something to the effect of, I don't effing care that they have weapons. they're not here to hurt me, take the effing mags away.
The committee played police radio traffic from that morning, backing up the reports of armed protesters, some perched in trees.
They had Glock-style pistols in their waistband.
I got 3 men walking down the street in fatigue while carrying AR-15.
The former White House aide also said she was told that Trump was angry when Secret Service agents told him they were not going to drive him to the Capitol, and that things got physical when he attempted to take the wheel and drive himself.
The president said something to the effect of, "I'm the effing president, take me up to the Capitol now." The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, "Sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol."
The former president took to his Truth Social platform to dispute the claims. "Never complained about the crowd," he wrote. "It was massive. I didn't want or request that we make room for people with guns to watch my speech. Who would ever want that? Not me." Also debunking her account of lunging for the steering wheel. Her fake story that I tried to grab the steering wheel of the White House limousine in order to steer it to the Capitol building is sick and fraudulent. I hardly knew who she was. Media outlets say the Secret Service is ready to dispute Hutchinson's claims of grabbing the wheel and assaulting an agent. In a tweet, NBC's Peter Alexander writing, "A source close to the Secret Service tells me both Bobby Engel, the lead agent, and the presidential limousine SUV driver are prepared to testify under oath that neither man was assaulted and that Mr. Trump never lunged for the steering wheel." The committee's star witness also highlighting that White House counsel Pat Cipollone tried to get Meadows to encourage Trump to call off protesters over threats toward Vice President Mike Pence.
I remember Pat saying something to the effect of, "Mark, we need to do something more. They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung." And Mark had responded something to the effect of, "You heard him, Pat. He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong."
Meanwhile, Cassidy Hutchinson also revealed that former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Rudy Giuliani both sought presidential pardons related to the January 6th attack. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
The Secret Service notified the January 6th committee Tuesday afternoon it will make the agents involved available to testify under oath. CNN reports the agents are prepared to say under oath the incident itself did not happen. Coming up, an inside look at what's really happening in the war in Ukraine from CBN contributor Chuck Holton, who was at the shopping mall that was hit by a rocket this week. We'll get his outlook on what's going on in the war when we come back. French President Emmanuel Macron blasted Russia's missile strike on a crowded shopping mall in Ukraine Monday as a new war crime. Speaking at the group of seven meeting leaders in Europe, he also promised the West's support for Kyiv would not waver, saying Moscow cannot and should not win in Ukraine. I spoke with CBN contributor Chuck Holton about the war and that missile attack. Here's a look at our conversation. Now, Chuck, you've been to the area with the shopping mall that was hit by a missile on Monday. What can you tell us?
Well, the Russians are saying that that was an abandoned mall. That's news to me because I had lunch there. And it's about halfway between Dnipro and Kyiv, about 3 hours or so from Dnipro. And it's a very busy place, lots of civilians going there. As you can imagine, it's difficult to get products now, more difficult than it was before the war. And so that's one of the central places. It's kind of like a Sam's Club and a Home Depot and things like that. They're there. So a lot of people go there to get supplies, water, gas cans, things like that. And it certainly was very busy the day I was there.
Now, were you surprised that the Russians targeted?
I don't think the Russians actually targeted it. I think that their targeting systems are so antiquated because if you look at the size of the missile that was used on this thing, it was actually an ICBM. It was meant to carry a nuclear payload long distances. And what that tells us is that they're out of their precision munitions. Wow. They don't have any left. And they're digging into their old Cold War stocks of these 4- and 5-ton missiles. And they, you know, in nuclear war, close is good enough. So they may have been aiming at some tactical target near there, but this was not their intended target, and that's what they ended up hitting. Mm-hmm. There's no strategic or tactical benefit for them to hit this mall and kill a bunch of civilians. But this is what we've seen over and over. I've been to dozens of these missile strikes that have hit civilian areas, hospitals, schools, playgrounds, things like that, and you think, why would they expend a $4 or $5 million missile on a playground? It doesn't make any tactical sense. So I don't think they're trying to do that. I just think they don't have the precision capabilities to hit what they're aiming at very well.
Some would say Russia is shooting itself in the foot in Ukraine. Why do you think that is, if true?
Well, for this very reason. When you see that 60% of the missiles that they fire are hitting actual civilian targets that don't have any strategic or tactical value. Again, they're running out of the munitions that could hit the things that they're aiming at, and they're just randomly bombing stuff now. When you blow up a villager's garden with a $10 million missile, it just turns the people against you. This is in the areas where it's mostly Russian people. And so 70% of the people in that area would have been amenable, would have at least thought about voting to join Russia or become a part of Russia before the war. But when you blow up their house, or you blow up their kid's school, or you blow up their shopping mall, now they're not going to be on your side. And I actually have had these conversations over and over with people where they've said, I speak Russian. I'm of Russian descent. My family came here in the 1930s. But I now want to join NATO. I now want to join the EU.
Wow. Do you think Russia will ultimately win this war or not?
I think Russia has already lost this war.
Wow.
From the standpoint of any kind of national security benefit for them, it's become a self-fulfilling prophecy. They were saying, we have to invade because these people are going to join the EU and NATO. They weren't that disposed to doing it beforehand, but now they are. And not only are they disposed to it, but Finland and Sweden and lots of other countries are going, we need to join NATO. They've reinvigorated NATO in a way that wouldn't have happened without this war. And so if their objective was to make their country safer or more prosperous, all of those things have failed. They have seen, according to the U.S. Pentagon, about 30% of their armored capability, their total armor of their entire military has been destroyed in 120 days of war, or whatever it is now. And so they are losing on every front. They're losing on the information battle space, they're losing in the kinetic battle space, and they're losing in the battle space of public opinion. And all of those things bode poorly for Russia.
Indeed. Chuck Holton, thank you so much for your insights. You're in studio with us now, safe and sound. We're glad you're here, but you're heading back to Ukraine as well.
That's right.
All right, much appreciated.
Okay.
Still ahead, Worshiping God, our Studio 5 conversation with worship leaders Bryan and Katie Torwalt as they release their first live album and talk about what it means to hear good news in 2022. We'll hear what they have to say when we come back right after this. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. We have good news from worship leaders Bryan and Katie Torwalt. This project marks their first live recorded album. It comes from the husband and wife duo whose voices are very familiar to many because of their Jesus Culture projects. With this new music, they're also celebrating being back on the road and in front of live audiences following the pandemic shutdown.
Line by line it was written, hope in every sentence. He was good, start to finish. Yes, he was. The words that usher his presence and tell of the glories of heaven. The earth that still shakes at the mention. Yes, it does. I got good news.
What does it mean to hear good news in 2022?
I think that's a huge theme of this record. After the last couple of years, we've had just hearing so much not good news.
You are good, it is your nature.
We dove into the Gospels, we dove into the red letter words of the Bible. What did Jesus say? What did it look like when Jesus came and encountered people, how their life was changed and flipped upside down, and how counter to the culture of the time it was, and how does that apply to us now?
If it's true, your kingdom never ends. You're the God of generations, and I know my children will be blessed to walk with you too.
I think that Jesus is with us, the Holy Spirit is with us and comforts us in our mourning, that we don't have to go through that alone, that there will be trials, that there will be hardships in this life, but we're not alone in those things.
What's it like to be on stage, touring again, and being out and ministering with people, and their reception to this music so far?
I think it's such a fun experience to get to go lead. Honestly, just leading worship in general in a room full of people is one of our all-time favorite things. And get to go to do some of these new songs, and that for us we feel are like a breath of fresh air to lead them.
Can we sing our hearts beyond what eyes can see?
We ended up leading in Texas a few weeks ago, right around the time of that shooting, and you could really feel the heaviness. But in those nights, Katie began to share about that verse in Timothy, and sound mind, and declaring those words, a sound mind for a spirit of fear. Those moments in Texas during that week felt like such profound things, and one of those moments that you're like, yes, coming together to worship, those can be healing moments for us as the body of Christ.
On my knees. Hallelujah, on my knees.
Like those nights were so clear that like really what we have to offer people is just bringing them into the presence of God, bringing them to Jesus. Getting to do that is such a privilege that we don't take lightly at all, and it's something that we love to do. We absolutely love it and find so much joy in it when we're out.
What made you decide to do a live recording?
The live record really is a first for us. During the pandemic, I think there was a lot of worship going on in our house that we played from YouTube or wherever that was live, because we were missing that so much. And I think feeling like you were in the room worshiping with people just felt so precious during that time. And I think when we went out to make this next record, we knew that it had to be live. We wanted it to be captured as live as absolutely possible, to hopefully create that same experience for people. The more we can bring people into those moments, that is our hope for this record, and we set out to create it that way as well.
I love that. I love that. What's your hope and prayer for this project as it is now out for the world to hear?
For me, I think our hope and a prayer would be as they listen to the music or experience it on YouTube, on their TV, all those things, that they would experience a joy and a relief and a hope that there truly is good news in 22. Just like it was good news 2,000 years ago when Jesus died and rose again. Our hope is that people would experience that same relief, that same joy, that same reminder of, oh, I still have good news. Jesus is still our good news even now in this moment.
I'm holding on to faith. I'm holding on to hope.
This new album features 11 live recorded tracks and follows the couple's chart-topping song, Miracle in the Works. For more uplifting entertainment news, be sure to catch Studio 5 this evening. We're taking you behind the scenes of the film Father Stu, which is now available on streaming platforms. We're also having a one-on-one chat with actor Zachary Levi, who's sharing how he went from suicidal to superhero. You can see those stories tonight on Studio 5 at 8:30 Eastern on the CBN News Channel. You can also watch it on the CBN News app. Coming up, from the streets to the kitchen, one woman finds her purpose in helping the homeless. We're going to bring you her story when we come back. Homelessness is on the rise across the country. The crisis no more real than in places like the Bronx and New York City. But there's help, and in some cases coming from those who experienced it themselves, like Sobeyra Almonte, who at the age of 20 was pregnant and experiencing homelessness after an assault that landed her in the hospital and then a homeless shelter. But she eventually overcame being unable to be housed, and she is crediting God with the help. Now she has made it her mission to help others in similar situations.
I want to tell everybody that there's a lot of Sobeyra out there waiting for an opportunity to grab it and embrace.
Almonte is raising 4 children and getting her college degree. On top of that, she and her husband still make it a priority to serve, making time to cook meals for those at least once a week. Time now for your Wednesday word, and today's word is word. Remember this: mind your words. Words have power. Scripture clearly tells us you will have what you say. So speak life and don't just say what you see, because if what you see is all you see, you actually don't see it all. With that word, make this a wonderful Wednesday. That is a wrap for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel at any time. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can email us. The address is newswatch@cbn.com. You can also reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Looking forward to seeing you right back here tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.